Hey, 4th and 5th grade, missed ya on these first chapter Fridays. I know it's been a while, and I'm sorry about that, but I'm back, baby. I'm in the building, and I am excited to bring you guys another installation of a first chapter Friday. It is one of my New Year's resolutions to make sure that we commit to doing this every week. So I'm going to be reading in here every day to make sure that I've got enough good recommendations for you. I want you guys to keep me accountable to that. And please come ask me if you're like, Mrs. Wood, it's been Friday and you have not sent us a first chapter Friday. Come ask me. Okay? Today, I'm really excited to be sharing one with you that is one of my favorites of all time. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this is because it actually just came out as on Netflix. It's like a musical, and it is awesome. It is a classic from Roald Dahl called Matilda. It used to be a movie as well, but they just came out with a redone version of it, and I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard it's really, really good. Now, the chapter on this is really long. The chapters are pretty long, so I'm only going to read the first few pages, but I really think you're going to like it. It's a mix of it's fiction, but it's a mix of like humor and fantasy, and it's just really, really good. It's a really sweet story. The Trunchbull is no match for Matilda. This is just like an intro. Matilda is a sweet, exceptional young girl, but her parents think she's just a nuisance. She expects school to be different, but there she has to face Miss Trunchbull, a kid-hating terror of a headmistress. When Matilda is attacked by the Trunchbull, she suddenly discovers she has a remarkable power with which to fight back. It'll take a superhuman genius to give Miss Trunchbull what she deserves. And Matilda may be just the one to do it. So that was the information about it. Now here is the first section. And here's the chapter 1, The Reader of Books. It's a funny thing about mothers and fathers. Even when their own child is the most disgusting little blister you could ever imagine, they still think that he or she is wonderful. Some parents go further. They become so blinded by adoration, they manage to convince themselves their child has the qualities of a genius. Well, there's nothing very wrong with all this. It's the way of the world. It is only when the parents begin telling us about the brilliance of their own revolting offspring that we start shouting, "Bring us a basin! We're going to be sick!" School teachers suffer a good deal from having to listen to this sort of twaddle from proud parents, but they usually get their own back when the time comes to write the end-of-term reports. If I were a teacher, I would cook up some real scorchers for the children of doting parents. Yeah, your son Maximilian, I would write, is a total washout. I hope you have a family business you can push him into when he leaves school, because he sure as heck won't get a job anywhere else. Or if I was feeling lyrical that day, I might say, it is a curious truth that grasshoppers have their hearing organs in the sides of their abdomen. Your daughter Vanessa, judging by what she's learned this term, has no hearing organs at all. I might even delve deeper into natural history and say, the periodical cicada spends 6 years as a grub underground and no more than 6 days as a free creature of sunlight and air. Your son Wilfred has spent 6 years as a grub in this school, and we are still waiting for him to emerge from the chrysalis. A particularly poisonous little girl might sting me into saying, Fiona has the same glacial beauty as an iceberg, but unlike the iceberg, she has absolutely nothing below the surface. I think I might enjoy writing end-of-term reports for the stinkers in my class. But enough of that. We have to get on. Occasionally, one comes across parents who take the opposite line, who show no interest at all in their children. And these, of course, are far worse than the doting ones. Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood were two such parents. They had a son called Michael and a daughter called Matilda. and the parents looked upon Matilda in particular as nothing more than a scab. A scab is something you have to put up with until the time comes when you can pick it off and flick it away. Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood looked forward enormously to the time when they could pick their little daughter off and flick her away, preferably into the next country or even further than that. It is bad enough when parents treat ordinary children as though they were scabs and bunions, but it becomes somehow a lot worse when the child in question is extraordinary. And by that, I mean sensitive and brilliant. Matilda was both of these things. But above all, she was brilliant. Her mind was so nimble and she was so quick to learn that her ability should have been obvious even to the most half-witted of parents. But Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood were both so gormless and so wrapped up in their own silly little lives that they failed to notice anything unusual about their daughter. To tell the truth, I doubt they would have noticed had she crawled into the house with a broken leg. Matilda's brother Michael was perfectly normal boy, but the sister, I said, was something to make your eyes pop. By the age of 1.5, her speech was perfect, and she knew as many words as most grown-ups. The parents, instead of applauding her, called her a noisy little chatterbox and told her sharply that small girls should be seen and not heard. By the time she was 3, Matilda had taught herself to read by studying newspapers and magazines that lay around the house. At the age of 4, she could read fast and well, and she naturally began hankering after books. The only books in the whole of this enlightened household was something called Easy Cooking, belonging to her mother, and when she had read this from cover to cover and had learned all the recipes by heart, she decided she wanted something more interesting. "Daddy," she said, "do you think you could buy me a book?" "A book?" he said. "What do you want a flamin' book for?" "To read, Daddy." "What's wrong with the television, for heaven's sakes? We've got a lovely telly with a 12-inch screen, and now you come asking for a book? You're getting spoiled, my girl." Nearly every weekday afternoon, Matilda was left alone in the house. Her brother, 5 years older than her, went to school. Her father went to work, and her mother went out playing bingo in a town 8 miles away. Mrs. Wormwood was hooked on bingo and played it 5 afternoons a week. On the afternoon of the day when her father had refused to buy her a book, Matilda set out all by herself to walk to the public library in the village. When she arrived, she introduced herself to the librarian, Mrs. Phelps. She asked if she might sit a while and read a book. Mrs. Phelps, slightly taken aback at the arrival of such a tiny little girl, unaccompanied by any parent, nevertheless told her, "Yes, you are very welcome." "Where are the children's books, please?" Matilda asked. They're over there on the lower shelves," Mrs. Phelps told her. "Would you like me to help you find one with lots of pictures in it?" "No, thank you," Matilda said. "I'm sure I can manage." And she did. Matilda is a very bright girl. Now, I want you to notice, in this book, there are several pictures. It's not a picture book, and it's not a graphic novel, but there are several illustrations throughout Roald Dahl's book. I think this is an awesome book for anybody who enjoys humor, is looking for a chapter book that you can kind of like really get stuck in and dive into, and then you could follow it up and read it with you could read it with your families, you could read it with your friends, and then you could go and watch the movie together. The new one is on Netflix, but it is based on this book, and there's an older one as well. I can almost bet that your parents have seen this one or they know about this book, so definitely ask if you want to come check this one out. I will have it saved and ready for the first person to come get our first chapter Friday featuring Matilda. Have a great day.